Come one, come all to the After Dark Podcast. The podcast in which Sheriff Anthony does his best to wrangle Konrad through Westworld, one doggone episode at a time. So kick back and grab yourself some Apple Jack, or some Adam's Ale if that's your preferred poison, and get ready for these two wannabe cowboys to ramble the night away. Music was provided by the fantastic Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot. Enjoy the show!
Down at the
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark Podcast. Didn't say howdy this week, and that's Konrad.
Hello. I'm not going to do it either.
Yeah, I didn't say I'm Anthony because I wanted to keep the same rhythm of the intro, but I am Anthony, just so you know, I am Anthony. If this is your first time logging on to the After Dark Podcast,
Sure.
It's a podcast in which me, Anthony James, takes Konrad through a TV show one episode at a time, and I seem to think that this might be the time when the theories start bubbling up. I know that... I know there's someone in the comments last week, I can't remember exactly who it was off the top of my head.
Might have been Stephen Crummy. I believe Stephen Crummy was certainly saying that they think the theories are going to be absolutely nuts, assuming that's what you were going to say.
Yeah. Someone, maybe it was Marvin as well. I'm not sure who exactly it was, but someone said only episode 1 and we've already got them on a different planet. Listen,
I've got it. I've got the theory matrix in front of me. Down for episode 1. Hey, are they in space? Maybe. So
yeah.
So you know,
They could be. They are rotating around. So come on. Definitely some sort of spherical stuff going on. All right. So we're here to talk about Westworld episode 2. Konrad, how have you been? Have you let the first episode soak in? How are you feeling about it now?
I think it's just going from strength to strength. Really. I don't want to get too much into it before we really get into it, but it was just another great episode. That first episode was great. This one was just as good. So many little hooks and little morsels to sink your teeth into. I can't wait to get into it.
Neither can I. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
Wake up, Dolores. Is how
She's
the
up and
episode
about.
start. Yeah, she's up and about. So the episode starts again. They do another starting the episode how it ends.
Yeah.
I can't remember if this is every episode, but maybe it is. So they start off, wake up Dolores, chatting away to her, asking does she remember. She walks out into the garden of her house, sort of just out of the ranch house. Nice little way to start. There wasn't actually much else here. It was just sort of set up, wasn't it? Yeah,
just kind of Bernard's talking over a conversation with Dolores, possibly sowing the seeds for conversations that these two characters will have later in the episode.
And don't worry, listeners, I will be saying Bernard, so you'll only be annoyed at Konrad saying Bernard.
Listen, all right, has he pronounced it Bernard, and I've just chosen to call him Bernard?
Yeah, boy, yeah.
I'm normally quite conscious of stuff like that, I respect people's pronunciations of their names, but for some reason, this character's just rubbed me the wrong way. Clearly, I'm sticking with Bernard.
Yeah, you had too much of the children's book. Not now, Bernard. When you were a kid.
Yeah. Like every other character, I will endeavour to pronounce them correctly. But if you were here for episode 2 of the After Dark podcast on Westworld, you heard me defiantly stating that I will continue to call him Bernard.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so from that little very short setup scene, it goes and introduces a couple of new characters.
Oh, yeah.
One is played by one of the McPoyle brothers, who I'm sure...
Boyle McPoyle in the flesh.
From It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think his real name's Jimmy something, but he's a good actor. I like him. And he's also... then also you've got Ben Barnes playing Logan. And Ben Barnes, you might remember as Prince Caspian from the Narnia series.
That's who he bloody is. I was looking at him and I was like, why do I know this guy from? And he's not playing much of his Prince Charming in this. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah. He's more R-rated in this, we will say.
Yeah. Okay. First off, great to see Boyle McPoyle. Lovely to see him appear in this. I think this explains why the McPoyles perhaps became less prominent in the kind of Always Sunny narrative cycle in the later seasons, because he was off doing proper TV. Like not Always Sunny. But I think this introduction is great for a number of reasons. Not least that obviously it's as he arrives at the park, he's presented with the option to dress himself, which brings the Randy Quaid lookalikes outfit from the previous episode into stark contrast. I'm gonna say, like, that man chose that jacket, and that he does. That is like Chevy Chase getting himself dressed for a spoof western, or like Steve Martin. But yeah, these two characters, I'm interested to see what happens here because they seem to hate each other.
They do, but there's also already a little bit of back and forth between them with Logan, who's Ben Barnes' character, saying, and it's Jimmy Simpson, by the way, who plays William, is the name of the character. So Logan says to William, do you not think that my sister was, banging some cowboys while she was here? As well as that, there's also mentioned later on, I got the impression straight away when I first watched this that there's some sort of relationship going on here. Have you sort of pinned down what type of relationship you think that they have?
I mean, I feel like they work together. I don't think they're related. So I feel like Logan is William. That's the character's name, right? Logan.
Logan is Ben Barnes' character.
Yeah. Logan is William's boss. I'm assuming based on the kind of power dynamic here. Like, it seems like he's kind of dragged William along for this this kind of debauched holiday where he's just going to go and shoot everything that he can.
But the mention of the sister, did that put anything in your mind?
It's a good point, actually. I suppose maybe they're like brothers-in-law. Maybe he's married to his sister now, or something like that.
See, that's sort of the area that my mind was going to as well.
I didn't go there, to be honest. But that is, it's totally believable that could be the case.
Yep. And obviously Logan seems to be much more au fait with how this part works.
So, and this is something that this show is really, really good at so far, and I really hope, long may it continue, is that it sows exposition into brilliant sort of character-driven moments. So you get the building of the relationship between these two characters, really letting us know, how they feel about each other, making it pretty obvious that they don't particularly like each other. But at the same time, you get little like kind of morsels of information about how the park actually works. So you get, I think they have actually said it in the last episode, but if they have, it's kind of doubled down on and confirmed here. This idea that, like, the further out you get, the more intense the experience becomes. And it's very much, it reminds me of like open world video games where you're like on an island and you can like swim out into the sea from the island, but eventually it'll like turn you back towards the game area. And that sounds like kind of what they're doing here, where at the edges of the park is where the experience is so intense that you have no option but to turn back. But it does make me wonder what the edge of the park actually looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I love all that. I love all the sort of building in of the game. It really feels like a video game or something like that. I do really like that. It's interesting as well because Westworld obviously was originally the film back in like the 60s or 70s, and I think it's interesting that the way that it's become popular and they've made this TV show of it as well, because it really sort of mimics as well, like escape rooms and stuff. I think these and secret cinemas and stuff, like the where you go along and everyone's in character. There's a lot of this in the world right now.
It's because everyone wants to play D&D, they just don't know it yet. So everyone's into a bit of role play. You've put it perfectly. Like, only people who don't want to play D&D are people who don't know what it is. That's literally it. Okay, so some little details here. So he goes in to get his uniform, William, and he chooses a white hat. Yeah, this is a little arbitrary, I'm gonna say. Like, I feel like I haven't had any problems so far with the writing or the presentation in this show, but I was like, which one are you gonna be, white hat or black hat? I was a bit like, okay, I understand the metaphor. You didn't need to make it quite as obvious as that.
Well, I think it's like sort of, because it's sort of playing with the genre of Western. There are going to be a lot of winks and nudges, And then, did you notice, like, obviously when he was choosing his clothes, there was the woman who was asking, are you real? And she's, like, obviously one of the hosts, I think. She didn't actually say she was, but the way she was talking and the way she was saying, I'm here at your pleasure, would 100% make you think she was.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed that she is a host, but I think that's one of the things that this show has done really well so far, is just this persistent question of, like, who is real and what does it even mean to be real? And I suspect that's going to be a theme that is a major one in this show, which I'm always a big fan of, as a massive fan of, like Blade Runner and stuff like that. Yeah, this idea of redefining what it means to be alive is something that always gets me interested, and they've definitely got me here as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so he decides sort of not to partake with this host.
Yep.
But whenever and then he goes through onto the train, and we'll talk about that in a second. But whenever Logan joins him, do you notice that Logan's zipping his zipper up?
Yep. Yeah, already at it. So the weird thing about Logan's character, and this isn't a complaint because I'm sure it will be revealed as we see more of the character, but he seems like he knows a lot about this place, which to me, I can't. Does he say he's been here before, or is it just that he's heard from other people?
Yeah. No, he does say he's been here before.
Yeah, so it's odd to me to. I'd like to think of myself as the kind of person who, if I went to Westworld, I wouldn't just immediately start killing and having sex with everything that I possibly could. Mm-hmm. But I can understand why some people who maybe go on holiday for different reasons would have that response the first time they went there. But to do it after you've done it once or twice before, I would have thought it would get incredibly boring to do that, but I don't know, maybe I'm undervaluing the thrill of that to people like him.
Well, I think, I know exactly. I obviously wouldn't do that. I'd be thinking, like, that guy who fell off the cart and was like, let's go find treasure. I'd be like, right. Let's
Absolutely. Let's go.
I'm loving this guy. Let's go find some treasure. Right. But the thing is, a lot of people, like, I think the people who like him who just want to do that, right? It's like, yes, if you compare it to his other trips to Westworld, it is really debaucherous, and like it's like, why would he just continue doing the same thing? But there might be like a year between the visits, so he's went back to his normal life, sitting at his desk at work, and he's just like thinking all year, I'm gonna go back,
Yeah. This is his chance to cut loose, I guess. But it strikes me as a very I think the characterization of Logan is really good, because I think he thinks that he is the most kind of wild, crazy guy. It's like, oh my god, look at him! In fact, he's having sex with two women and a man at the same time. Like, what an absolute debaucherous encounter this is. But the reality is that he's quite small-minded and boring, and I think that is really well reflected in William's attitude towards him, where like it seems like he just has nothing but disdain for this character.
Yeah, there's not,
and rightfully so.
I mean, if they are brother-in-laws, there's not really much brotherly love going on. Let's be honest.
They should have gone to St. Louis instead. Like, or is that the city of brotherly love? Maybe. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. St. Louis.
St. Louis. Oh, we can't get into that again. We can't cross the streams of the podcast.
Right. Okay. So we go sort of out of the world into the backstage area again, and you've got this sort of talking about building a new narrative, which was like, I love this little subplot going on in this episode. So Bernard and Teresa, who's the name of the character from German, she's from Denmark, I think, the actress, who she eventually comes around and visits Bernard in his hotel room or his apartment. They're talking, and they're talking about how Abernathy... Actually, no, it's not Teresa, sorry. It's not Teresa. It's
the scientist lady.
The scientist lady, who I can't remember the name of. Oh, Elsie. Elsie Hughes. So Elsie Hughes and Bernard, and they're talking about Abernathy had something fucked up going on with his brain.
Yeah.
And she's asking to let him let her rebuild Abernathy, but also let's pull Dolores out because she was really in close contact with Abernathy, and Bernard says no.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The main takeaway I had from this short conversation is this idea that these so-called dissonant episodes are pretty much just swept under the rug, which seems like a real good way to ensure that they keep happening.
Yeah. Well,
and get worse.
Forget your... Well, that's the thing, like, I don't know if it applies directly, but, like, the idea is, like, you forget your past, or you just, like, if you don't teach the history...
Those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it, I think, is I mean, we don't know what the critical failure in the park 30 years ago was, but I reckon there's going to be another one at some point in this series, and I reckon it's going to look a lot like that one, so we'll see.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we go to Dolores now. She's in town. She's rocking into town, like, just like normal. For
the most part,
for the most part, because she has like a flash where she can see all the dead bodies in the street.
Yep, it's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal.
Perfectly normal. Yeah. And then Maeve comes over. Oh, there's also a wolf in there. What do you think about that?
Did I admit what? There's a dead wolf in the street.
No, it's not dead. It's actually alive, walking around amongst the dead bodies.
Oh, I didn't notice that actually. That's interesting. I'm not sure if I have any theories about that yet, but that feels... It's interesting that what she sees is to me very clearly not the same, or not presented in the same way as what Maeve keeps on flashing back to later in this episode. One of them is clearly a flashback, like a memory that they hold in Maeve's case, whereas this, I don't know what this is that Dolores is seeing, because it doesn't feel like a flashback or a memory to me. And the wolf, it almost implies a kind of level of symbolism to her kind of her mind that she's kind of like building these visual metaphors in her head, but I don't know what they mean. I have to have a think about that.
Yeah, okay. There's also a moment where Maeve comes over and speaks to her, and then Dolores actually says to Maeve, same thing that her father said the last episode, these violent delights have violent ends.
Yeah. And I love to see this because Tandy Newton she hasn't been in as much stuff as she should have been, or certainly like as much high profile stuff as she should have been. She's a phenomenal actor, and this episode makes me think, she seems like she might be quite a big character in this, and this is the beginning of it. Like Dolores kind of passes along the brainworm of like, hey, maybe you're more than what you think you are. And I was starting to think actually about this phrase, like these violent delights have violent ends, which I think is from a Shakespeare play. I'm not actually sure, but could that be that we've already had people we've already had hosts responding to like code words, like was it may you rest in a deep and pleasant slumber or whatever. I wonder if that is another one.
Maybe one that they know from the past or something like that.
Yeah, to like activate something on a very low level to get them to start questioning themselves, just because it seems that everyone... I guess that's not true, because the bandit guy from last week kind of started to freak out without ever hearing that line. But it's interesting to me that there are these like repeated lines that sound very like prosaic and arch, when in other parts of this show we're hearing people saying these kind of lines to the hosts to make them do things. Okay, so you're sort of implying that there potentially might be a theory here somewhere then? Maybe something like... Yeah, I'm not 100% on this one yet, but I feel like I'm definitely keeping an eye on that and being like, is just them saying that doing something, or is it just them repeating? So someone's building something into some aspect of the code or something which might be planting seeds within them. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I've got some thoughts about who that might be by the end of this episode. I'll tell you that for free. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so let's see. The hat room. We've already talked about this really. I do want to talk about the train, though. That's like... so this is perfect time then. So like he goes through the door onto the train, and it's like really cool. So it's like a little futuristic-y white passage. How does this train work? Like, they both walk through the same door without the train ever seeming to move? I mean, maybe it's just on really, really like well like suppressed rollers, so it's like moving along to all the different rooms and collecting the passengers and then put on the rails and going. But it's so cool, like that kind of... I just assumed that the hat room was the same for everyone, and then they all came through the same door. I didn't think that. I guess it could have been, but I figured because Logan goes off with another host and gets dressed there. I assumed that they had a separate changing room with separate guns and separate hats in it as well. That could definitely be the case. I know what you mean. I think that we could maybe think about how this train moved around. Let's figure out the physics of this train. All right. Yeah. We're not moving on. It's like pivoting around like this. Yeah, it's on like a little like rotating thing. And then it finally goes. But it's such a cool introduction to the world. Like you literally just walk through the door and you're just in it immediately. It's great. Yeah, like no warning whatsoever. It is really cool. I like it. Okay, so the train starts moving. There's a little thing as well. Like there's a moment I thought which was really cool whenever the train moves off. And William and Logan are both there looking out the window, and all of a sudden, like, William thought this was going to be, like, from what you understand throughout the episode, he thought this was going to be like a little town where you go up to a ranch and then it's sort of a couple of people in character or whatever, or a couple of hosts in character. Yeah, it's going to be like Disneyland, essentially. Yeah. Whereas the train moves off and all of a sudden they're in the middle of, like,
Arizona desert or whatever this is.
Yeah, it's
just
great.
Yeah,
the scale. I almost feel like William is kind of a bit of an audience analog here, of just obviously he has his own narrative that's going on, but this the kind of like awe that he responds with when he sees like the scale of the park is definitely something that I was like, when not so much in this episode, but that first moment when it pulls back from the park to reveal the kind of 3D imaging of it with all the people gathered around it in the main headquarters. I was like, oh holy shit, okay, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's not just Sweetwater, it's I don't even know. It seems like it's hundreds of miles potentially.
Well, we also saw like 3 towns in this episode alone.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
So it's crazy. Okay, so they also say a line, "This place will tell you who you really are."
Yep.
Put it on a postcard.
Yeah, postcard of someone like slaughtering James Marsden in a brothel. We'll get to him. Poor old
now
Teddy.
This is a vacation. All right. Okay. So a hanging is taking place. It's not really. It's interesting. Like the man in black comes in, and I like how he goes through. Like he's still, even though he's like going to try and.
Oh yeah.
He's trying to do this game to the higher level. He's been there so many times, but he's still playing the cowboy game.
Yeah, I love it. I like when he rolls up and says, "Oh, you're going to give me Lawrence," and I can't actually remember what the sheriff says to him. But
he said, "Do you want me to dig that grave twice as deep?"
Oh yeah, do you want me to dig that grave twice as deep? And then the man in black responds with, "Well, it's going to be an awful tight fit for all of you," and that is 100% him channeling Charles Bronson as harmonica. And Once Upon a Time in the West with the we brought one too few horses, and he's like, no, you brought two too many, and it's like, oh man, this guy is a badass. And then I respect it, that he's got a sense of theatricality. If you're here, you might as well enjoy yourself while you're up to no good.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just love it. He says about how he's been coming to the park for however many years, and he still absolutely loves the role play.
Well, and like this is the kind of villainy that I can get on board with. Not like all the drunks that just randomly shoot people in the head in like the bars, but like put a little bit of effort into it, make it a little bit more Machiavellian. That's what we need.
Yeah, be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So as you say, Lawrence is the guy who's been hung, and now gives him the scalp. And it says it's the maze, it's the deepest level of the game.
Yeah.
You're going to help me find the entrance.
I still don't know what that... Did that map on the scalp lead him to Lawrence? Or is it a separate thing that he's going to get Lawrence to interpret? I don't really understand.
Yeah, he might already know Lawrence and sort of where... Maybe he knows where Lawrence has been in the game, or maybe he knows that host will have a lot of...
Yeah.
Who knows? So Maeve there's a whole storyline going on with her now where she's sort of... They're trying all different things with Maeve to try and get her to be attractive to the visitors, the newcomers.
Yeah.
She's talking to a newcomer about her life, and then it triggers her to start remembering her past because I think this isn't the line something like, "This is the land of the free" or something. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. She's talking about getting off the boat and then realizing the voice had followed her all the way from England. I will say here as well. I'd forgotten that this happened, but No Surprises by Radiohead starts playing on the... I don't even know what you call it, 'cause it's like a self-playing piano. I guess it's like a jukebox or something.
Just say any number of syllables and followed with the word phone, and it's okay.
Yeah, sure. A Suzuma phone.
That's the one.
But this is one of my favourite Radiohead songs, and I'd forgotten it was in this episode. And as soon as it started playing, I was like, yeah, okay, you got me. But then, yeah, Maeve, because it's a very like kind of mournful, and kind of melancholy song, and it really suits Maeve's arc, not just in this scene, but just in general in this episode. Mm-hmm. These flashes back she's having to some kind of like native attack on like her homestead, and as the episode goes on, it becomes clearer. Maybe that's overselling it to say it becomes clearer. It became clearer to me what that meant for her past and the past of her character. Obviously, we've seen other characters be repurposed to different roles around the park, and my suspicion is that's what's happened with Maeve as well. And I love the shift from her remembering something very horrific, that becomes even more horrific as we see more of it, and not just for what is inflicted upon her within the kind of narrative of the attack, but also in the broader sense of people, the scientists and engineers subjecting her character to having a child, having a homestead, and then taking her out of that, but leaving the memories there and making her do something else. But then to go from that to the very cold analytics of I can't remember where is it like behavior or something? We don't even see the people. It's very explicit. We don't see their faces.
Those people, they're the storyline. They're the narrative ones.
Yeah.
And then the behavior people that's where Elsie is.
Yeah, Bernard and Elsie. Yeah. So so like the narrative people, like, just very unfeeling. They're like, I don't know, make her really, really proactive and aggressive, because they only appreciate the hosts on a very surface level for what they are. Like, Maeve is a prostitute, therefore she needs to be aggressive to go out and get clients. And this kind of like threat of retirement if it goes wrong, and it's just so callous. And yeah, it's Maeve's storyline in this episode is so good, and I can't wait to see more of her character.
Yeah, Maeve is one of my favorites in the show for sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing you sort of her journey. Okay, so we have then Bernard and Ford have a wee chat, and Bernard's sort of going there to Ford almost to question whether or not, I think he was sort of trying to build the courage up to ask Ford, did he do something to the code or whatever?
Yeah.
Because they had a chat about that with Elsie already, and Bernard said, "You taught me how to make them, but not how hard it is to turn them off."
So this is interesting to me. So, and the other thing they say as well is that Bernard says the photograph alone, or it might have been Ford who says this, but one of them says the photograph alone couldn't cause the damage we saw to Abernathy, which is very interesting, because it ties back into my theory previously about maybe Ed Harris's character, the Man in Black, tinkering away with some of these hosts over the last 30 years. And yeah, the idea that Bernard hasn't retired a host before, that seems odd to me, given he seems to have worked here for a long time.
Maybe it's just implying that he always feels this way whenever it happens,
I guess so. Yeah, maybe I'm just misreading that.
They literally well, it was Abernathy he was talking about, wasn't it? Yeah, because they retired him last time.
Yeah, he whispered something which is, given Bernard's actions in this episode, he whispered something which is becoming increasingly suspicious in Abernathy's ear as he retired him.
Yeah, and I think as well, Bernard questions, is it sabotage? And Ford says, I think it's Occam's razor here, obviously implying that just because you see a symptom of sabotage doesn't mean it is sabotage. You're thinking about this too much.
Excuse me. Yeah. Which seems like a very, very cavalier attitude, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because obviously something is affecting the code, and he's very much just like, well, shit's gonna happen.
I'm going to die in a few years anyway. Yeah. That was my Anthony Hopkins for the listeners at home. You are welcome for it. Yeah, I think I need to hone it. I'll hone it over I can't believe Anthony Hopkins is going to be in that much of this show because he's fucking Anthony Hopkins. So I'll have to just keep practicing the accent while he's in the show.
And then after he's gone, you can be the voice of him, and then
sure.
It'll be like he's still here with us.
Yeah,
through you. I like as well that the little speech that Ford gives here, and he describes that. It explains that if they were living hundreds of years ago, they would have been burnt at the stake because what they do is witchcraft.
Yeah. We create life out of chaos, which is a word, chaos specifically, that comes back later in this episode by another character who maybe has a relationship with Ford. We'll see.
Interesting, okay. All right, so William and Logan make it to town. They're walking through. William knocks into some big guy and immediately like, oh, sorry. And then Logan's like, what the fuck are you doing?
I would 100% be like that as well. Like, I'd be like, I'm so sorry. And like just be really polite to all the hosts. It's like when you go to I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you go to like a really fancy restaurant and they're like pulling your chairs out for you and everything, and it just feels really uncomfortable to have people like waiting that much on you. Like, it's fine, I can do my own chair, guys.
Well, I actually I've been so socially awkward before in a restaurant where they've actually done the thing where they pour a little bit of wine in my glass and they want me to taste it, and I've actually maybe come across as a bit of a dick, but I really didn't want to. I don't like partaking in things that are just theatricality for theatricality's sake.
Yeah, I mean there is a reason for that. To be fair,
no, there's not, because
it's to make sure the wine isn't corked.
It was a twist cap.
Oh, okay, fine, yeah, that's
yeah. So it was a twist cap, and I was so socially awkward about it. I just went, "No, you don't have to do that. That's not a corked bottle."
I mean, that is ridiculous. To do it for a twist cap, I don't think there's any reason for that beyond purely performative.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if it was a cork, I would put up with the social awkwardness of having to do it, because I understand that actually, yes, we need to check if it's corked. But the twist cap, I can't. I can't, like. I
can't be a party to this.
I was at a restaurant the other day, actually, with my wife and my brother-in-law, and I was watching another table, and luckily our waiter didn't do it to us this time, but another table, I saw them do it, right? So they twisted the twist cap off and put a little bit in the glass, right? And the woman like sipped it and went, "Oh, lovely, yes." And all the people around the table looked at her like, "Oh, fancy."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Oh my god, that is my worst nightmare."
No, you need to go the other way with it. You take a sip, immediately send it back.
Yeah. It's corked. It's corked.
Yeah. It's a power play. You need to do it. Just bring it. No, I won't have that.
Absolutely corked. And then the guy's like, "But it's not even got a cork in it." It's like, what the fuck are you asking me to taste it for then? Gotcha. Right. All right. Okay. So anyway, that was a little wine detour.
But yeah, so I would be very much like William here, kind of like falling for every hook. I do wonder as well, again, like with this Logan character, who's, he seems to know the park so well, and he's like kind of rejecting all the story hooks that are thrown at him, which, like you said last week, are kind of like these RPG style exclamation marks popping up over people's heads, being like, "I've got a quest for you." What is he planning to do? Like, it seems...
you mean Logan's just ignoring them all? Yeah.
Well, yeah, like, what is his plan? This is like, it puts me in mind of, like, some holidays I've been on, where we've gone to, like, a really nice historic town that happens to have a beach as well, and we get them like, "Do you want to go to the museum, or, see these really old architecture? There's some lovely restaurants out there." And they're like, "No, I'm just gonna go sit on the beach." Like, what is the plan here, Logan? Like, you can't do that for 2 weeks.
Can you imagine? Like, this is why I think Logan. One of the reasons why in the real world he's probably a huge dick as well.
Yeah.
Because you imagine, like, imagine me showing you this show, right? And imagine we were sitting down watching it together, and I'm just like, right, okay, this is a show. All right, they're doing some crappy cowboy stuff. Let's fast forward to the good stuff. Fast forward, like, he can't even sit and let William enjoy it. Like,
yeah, like this is like a marvel of the modern world. It's just like, don't worry about all this. I'm gonna get you to the good stuff. It's like, and the good stuff is apparently him having a foursome and then stabbing a man in the hand. It's like, this is not fun at all for anyone apart from you, Logan, and it shouldn't be fun for you.
Yeah, like, it's literally just the killing, because I would imagine, I don't actually know if Logan has a partner, I can't remember, but if you want to go and have a sex with a load of people, you can go do that in the real world. So
yeah.
It is literally that he wants to kill people. That's it.
I'm not a Logan fan. Not a Logan fan. I'm gonna put my cards on the table.
No, okay. I think I'd probably be with you there, to be honest with you. I like William though. I like someone who's as sort of socially awkward as him.
Yeah.
All right. So the sorry thing happens. Clementine asks if they want to come in. Clementine says, "Got see something you like?" And Logan says, "At least a couple things." We know what he's up to. We know what he's up to.
Classic Logan.
Yeah. The old man with the eye patch falls off the wagon. I love that he's an old man on the floor covered in mud. Oh my god! And William's like, "Are you alright?" And Logan's like, "Leave him."
Yeah. He's gonna rope you into something. All right.
So if you just took the context out of it, it's so harsh. To
Yeah.
this old man. And then later on, I felt so sorry for this old host. He's like, well, he might be a new host, but he's an old man, and he's just like standing there on the side, when they're at the bar or the restaurant, and he's just like, hello, yes, you helped me earlier, and I'm just like, oh, this guy's so pathetic.
Yeah. It's they definitely make you feel for this character with very little screen time. It's a triumph of performance and economy of writing, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was really cool. I have another flash of Dolores talking to Bernard again.
Yeah, boy, howdy is she.
And this one really seems, actually, they give a little bit more context. They zoom out the camera a little bit, and it seems like there's a little bit of secrecy going on here with Bernard.
Yes, I don't know where they're meeting, but so they've had 138 encounters, and Bernard is getting her to delete recordings or delete records of their meetings with each other. So I've got a few thoughts about this. First off, Bernard seems shady as fuck to me. Is my that's my first point of order with this relationship. I think the impression I get from Bernard as a character is that he is kind of the heir apparent to Ford in terms of approaching this with a sense of kind of like artistry and curiosity to the life that is being created. But I think while Ford is also guilty of some of that arrogance or hubris associated with essentially playing God, I get the impression that Ford is a lot more measured and a lot more careful, whereas Bernard seems to be playing with fire here. He seems fascinated with Dolores and the fact that Dolores is clearly demonstrating some degree of self-awareness that he's not reporting. And I think he talks to her to learn about this, but I also view this almost as a kind of form of confession for him. Like, he is speaking to her to kind of absolve himself of the guilt of allowing this kind of nascent life to flourish, I guess, which, I mean, is an act of kindness in one way, but the way he's doing it and the way he's kind of manipulating it himself and taking full control over who knows about it and how it's controlled is very arrogant, I think. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens with Bernard's character, because he seems to be... Yeah, he definitely seems to be, of all the scientists who are all meddling with forces beyond their control, Bernard seems to be the one who is like, you're pushing the boundaries of this in some dangerous ways.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm not going to say too much about that, but okay. All right. Okay, so we'll catch up with Bernard later on. Maeve is now more aggressive.
Yeah.
And
still not working.
10% more, to be exact. And
I love that, like the percentage talk. It's like, what does that mean?
What is 100% aggression?
Yeah, that's Vinnie Jones as well. 100% aggression.
Just standing, smacking your own head against the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so she seemed like she was... This is funny, actually, because they made her more aggressive, and then she was talking to a woman, and she seemed like she actually was going to be successful in getting this woman's custom, but then she went aggressive, and she lost her. And I thought to myself, it sort of shows you that the storyline narrative people don't actually know anything. It sort of solidifies that point you made earlier, where they don't care, they don't really know what's going on, you know?
Well, and they just don't know people as well, which I think is an idea that they revisit later when Ford interjects in the proposal of the new narrative, because they think they know people, but you know, they are. I rate the Lee character over the Coles, and I stand by it. I think he is. There are a lot of kind of character stereotypes in this, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, because that's how you introduce characters in most TV series like this, is you kind of introduce them as an archetype and then you sort of broaden them from there, and I'm sure that'll be the case with him and the security guy. But I think Lee's stereotype and the entire narrative department are just the most kind of like the soulless, lacking in empathy, marketing speak kind of people who don't actually understand anything about the people they're selling to or the people they're trying to recreate in the hosts. And yeah, this is a great example of that, where it's like, this is just doesn't work. Like, maybe it's just a scary lady now. I mean, she was a scary lady before, but she's scarier now.
if they had just done nothing, maybe it would have been okay.
Yeah.
But now Maeve's down a path.
Yes.
Also, she says to Clementine, "Never open your mouth unless someone's paying you for it."
Yeah, great line.
A little quip. Clementine's having nightmares, but it doesn't actually seem. It seems as I don't know about you, but I sort of gauged from Clementine's describing her nightmares that they were now maybe not, but I think that they were potentially scripted.
I think the nightmares that Dolores and Maeve are having, they are very explicitly not talking to other people about. Mm-hmm. Whereas the ones Clementine's talking about, I suspect, are actual scripted nightmares, which again is kind of the genius of this show, is you can find yourself getting lost in the narrative of the hosts, and you always need to kind of pull yourself back and be like, oh, is that real or is that not real, and then what does real even mean? The one thing I would say for this is that if it is scripted, what a horribly cruel thing to do, to like script them to have nightmares. It's like you're playing God here. You don't have to make them have nightmares. And that seems like one of those little things that maybe they crunch the numbers on and were like, oh, this will give this reverie a certain percentage more of a kind of emotional content if they are troubled in some way by bad sleep. But it's just it's a horrible thing to do to someone that you don't have to.
Yeah, it is awesome. And I think as well it's interesting because the fact that she was saying that she wasn't sleeping made me think that it was scripted because they mentioned that the hosts can't actually have dreams or nightmares, but they know what they are. Having said that though, Maeve did say that she does have nightmares, and
they definitely are having nightmares. We're watching them have nightmares.
No, I know that, but they're not just happening while they're sleeping. It's not really nightmares. They're more sort of their whole cognitive function is being taken over by something.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so something to watch out for anyway. So more Maeve flashbacks, and also Teddy pops up here now. Teddy pops up. He's at the bar. Loves this bar, Teddy does.
Lovely, yeah, and the bar loves him as well. Nothing bad will ever happen to Teddy in this bar.
This is his safe place.
Yeah, this is a safe place for James Marsden. He's absolutely at home here, and nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we've talked mostly about everything on the dinner with Logan and William. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
He just sucks. He's just I feel like it bears repeating every time he's on screen that he's just an awful, awful person.
Yeah, it is true. But then we go from one awful person into another.
Yep.
Mr. Lee Sizemore.
Yeah.
He is a bully boss, we could say. He's really screaming at everyone. He's yelling about the size of the nose of a particular host they created.
Yeah.
Talking about, did you just put a penis on his face?
Also, openly threatening the security lady. Is it Teresa, the security lady's name? Yeah, so, talking about how when our dear leader eventually departs, he won't be the only old... I can't actually remember what he says, but it's something like the only old thing that gets gotten rid of, to me implying that Teresa is also going to be out when Ford goes, which... I on one hand I believe him, because characters like this, or indeed people like this in the real world, have an annoying knack of surviving and thriving in these kind of environments, but at the same time quite dangerous to just openly threaten someone like that.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't read it that way, to be honest with you. I completely see what you mean, though. I thought my mind just went, knowing Lee now, probably you are right, but for some reason I thought he just meant like all the old hosts would be gone and stuff, or maybe even Bernard he's talking about as well.
Yeah. It could mean any number of things. I think the reason I interpreted it as being directed at Teresa is because he tried to kind of form an alliance with her in the last episode, and she basically told him to fuck off. And now he's like, well, you had your chance, and now you're on the outs.
Yeah, when Odyssey, the new storyline kicks up, you're going to be gone. Really, okay. Yeah. Ford goes for a walk.
Yes. And he does.
He finds. I think if I wrote in my notes, he finds a child, but actually the child kind of finds him.
Yes.
And asks, "Are you lost?" There's a little bit of a talk about like only boring people feel bored. Yeah. Apparently, both of their fathers.
Yeah, both their dads say that. It's weird that almost as if this boy is a recreation of himself as a child.
Oh, is that a theory?
Yes, that's very much a theory in the in the Matrix. This weird little English boy wandering around the outside of the park seems
wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, wearing the same clothes and talking about the same thing that their dad used to say. I wonder if this could possibly be Anthony Hopkins recreating himself, or Ford rather recreating himself. Yeah, this is a cool scene actually, and it goes on. Into other, like, it's cut up interspersed with other scenes, but this is a cool scene for Ford's character actually, in what it reveals. I'm not going to talk about what I think is the biggest reveal in this scene, or what I think is a reveal until we get to it, but there's a lot that we get about the wider story of some characters here, and a lot we get about Ford's character in terms of, well, I mean, if he's recreated himself, it certainly speaks to that, like, longing for a simpler time that he seems to have, or not so much a simpler time, but that longing for when humans had like their life ahead of them, and they were kind of still developing into something exciting and new, which he's spoken about that in terms of the human race in its entirety, but I think that's probably also true for himself as an individual. He longs for the childhood where his whole life was ahead of him and he could have been anything, because from where he's sitting at the end of his life, it's very stagnant, I imagine.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Interesting theory. Let's see if that comes true. Real shot in the dark, that one.
Yeah, we'll see. I've got some confidence in that one.
All right, fair enough. So the Man in Black and Lawrence apparently are old friends, according to the Man in Black, and they go to his hometown.
Yep.
The Man in Black starts, like, lining up the bullets on the table, which is really
great
cool.
stuff.
Gives 2 bullets to the wife or whatever, and says, "Here,
Lawrence's daughter, and says, you get to
daughter.
decide what we're doing with these."
Yeah, exactly. Talks about the maze again. The cousins, Lawrence's cousins, get some men to come, and William just kills everyone.
Yep, great little shootout, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Some like really like kind of well shot action here, especially considering that Ed Harris is pretty old and he's not very mobile. Obviously, he doesn't need to be ducking and weaving because the bullets aren't affecting him, but it's still, for an action scene where one of the people is standing completely still, I really enjoyed it. Couple of things to note here. He references, the Man in Black, that is, references that life outside the game is chaos. So there's that word again. So we've had Ford mention it in a previous scene, and now we've had the Man in Black mention it. And there's a brief cutaway. I might have misheard this, but I was going to ask you a question about it, where they cut to inside the facility where the security guy is being asked what they want to do about the Man in Black because he's messing up a whole town in New Mexico or wherever, or the New Mexico area or whatever this is supposed to be, and the security guy says that gentleman gets whatever he wants, which to me reads as they know who he is and he's allowed to do whatever he wants in the park, rather than just I suppose you could read it as just a blanket, he's a guest, he gets to do whatever he wants, as all guests are, but to me I interpreted it as special treatment for the Man in Black.
I think you're interpreting the way it was intended. I think they're sort of implying he's a VIP.
Yeah. So they know of him, which is interesting. And then there's some great stuff here about, like, when so he says, like, when you're suffering, you're like you're most real, which, going back to my theory in the previous episode about how I think 30 years ago something affected him in the catastrophic failure, which is why he seems to now be set on a path to maybe unravel the functioning of the park. Feels like he maybe includes himself in that the suffering that he felt 30 years ago is what has kind of made him into the man he is today. And then after the shootout, we get Lawrence's daughter saying some real weird stuff. Some very odd things.
Now, follow the blood arroyo. Is that what she said?
Yeah, I don't know what a blood arroyo is, but
might be a star. Maybe a star.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe a river. I can't quite remember myself, to be honest with you. I think I'm gonna. After watching 2 episodes now, I'm fully back in. I think between now and next week, I'm gonna just binge the whole rest of the first season.
I'm so jealous. Every time I watch this, I'm just like, this is hard to not watch. Yeah. It's because it's real good stuff at the moment. But yeah. So follow the blood arroyo to the place where the snake lays its eggs. very interesting, very kind of again very like kind of prosaic and arch dialogue. But I think so. There's a more kind of like functional question I have here, which is that like why does this girl suddenly switch from character host to revealing things about the nature of this game, and why does she do it in such a way as this? It's really interesting to me because it seems like what we see in this episode is maybe when characters are subjected, or when hosts are subjected to like extreme trauma, they kind of revert to like a kind of base level functioning where they're they have their like cognition is such that they're kind of able to act on instinct to a certain extent. So we see it a bit later with Maeve, I think. But it's just still really interesting to me that the way that this host gives these clues is done in this like almost like riddles, which seems very odd to me.
Yeah, like it almost implies like to get to the next step of this game, he needed to make a host feel like 100% trauma, you know?
Yeah.
And then it sort of clicked on, or maybe this was the level of the game. Like you had to get to the point where you kill this man's wife.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe it's just like literally like an objective.
Steps in a quest line or something. It could be that. I hadn't considered that, to be honest, but yeah, maybe it is just that.
Yep. So Ford does his what do you call it? Snake charmer.
Snake charmer act. Yeah. So we get a name mentioned in this part of this scene where the little boy, who definitely isn't Ford as a child, mentions a character called Tommy. Which sounds very much like a brother or maybe a close friend to me. I know the accents are wrong, but this feels to me, the way these scenes are placed next to each other and the way they've both mentioned chaos, that they're saying that the man in black is Tommy and is either Ford's brother or a good friend that maybe used to work with him on this park 30 years ago. That's kind of where I'm at with this at the moment.
Interesting. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I feel like that if it turns out to be true, that asks a lot of questions about what he's doing and why he's doing it if he used to work here and now doesn't.
But also he's being allowed to do what he's doing.
Well,
too.
yeah, and he's being allowed to do it by people who know who he is. So I don't know what's going on. Like it's the shorthand for that.
Awesome. Okay. So not much else really going on with Ford and the child there. Anything else you wanted to know?
No,
Talk
not
about
really.
a town with a white church is mentioned.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I'd like put too much attention towards the latter parts of that. I'm assuming that's kind of just set it, like talking about where they grew up. But I mean, maybe that will be somewhere that he recreates in Westworld. Certainly, there is we see the roof of the black roof of what seems like a church at the end of this episode. So maybe he's, I don't know, drawing from his own past for this new narrative that he's creating.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty cool. Bernard and Teresa get it on.
Yes, this is probably why Bernard isn't getting on with his son and the mother of his son. if I were to guess, this probably has played a part in that. There's a lovely shot here as well when Bernard is going back to his apartment of like all the escalators, the kind of top-down shot of all of them running. It just gives a sense of scale of the place as well. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't. I didn't really remember that these two were an item. To be honest. So this caught me a bit off guard, but certainly explains some things about their strange relationships with their absent families. Or well, I don't know what Teresa's family situation is like. Actually, maybe she has no one.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's interesting. It is an interesting little dynamic to introduce for the story going forward. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Maeve is getting adjusted now by the behavior team. And they up her emotional acuity by 1.5%.
Yeah, again. What does that mean?
I love one thing. Obviously, the science mumbo jumbo is hilarious. But also, like the storyline people, the narrative people were like proper aggression 10%, and then they're like emotional acuity 1.5.
Yeah, just an absolute like just scorched earth approach to this in the narrative. I was like, I don't know, make it more aggressive, and if that doesn't work, send her over to the engineers to figure out what's really going on. And yeah, this I think, did you say Elsie? This character's name, Elsie.
Elsie, yeah.
Yeah. So she loves her creations, perhaps a little too much, one might say. But there's definitely, she has some of the same qualities as Bernard, I think, where she views them almost as like kind of children, or she has some kind of real relationship with them. But yeah, there's a lot of talk in here about do they dream, and like memories and concepts of dreams, and like nightmares, and what they're actually experiencing, and how the only thing that they're probably going to experience as an actual dream is what's happening to them when they're being cleaned and rewritten when they're brought in, which doesn't appear to be the case based on what we're seeing of Maeve, and I guess to a lesser extent Dolores as well, and B, that kind of rears its head later on in this episode with Maeve.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. But I think they also mentioned like that it was sort of as a fail safe. Like if they accidentally remembered the backstage area, the fact that they know what a nightmare is would be like a fail safe that they wouldn't think it was real.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, that I think I might have misread that, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that they think they're dreaming when they're there, so that they don't suddenly gain an appreciation of what they're actually in.
If they forget to wipe their memory, for example. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to see that completely be tested with Maeve at this point. Okay, so we'll quickly mention before we go into the Maeve sort of waking up stuff. Teddy does get killed.
He does get shot again.
I mean, I thought, yes, James Marsden's finally in this episode.
This is a new record for me. A character dying 3 times in the space of 2 episodes of television that is a new high. And I love how like he is just like humiliated as a character constantly. Like in this, he gets shot. Like he's going through his taciturn gunslinger monologue at the bar and saying all these charming things, and then he just gets shot in the back and shot in the face, and it's just like I feel like the show is kind of setting us up to feel like, or obviously feel sympathy for these characters, but to feel like you're pushing these characters towards something here. Like this character is being like subjected to horrific violence, and the guy who shoots him, like, there's no reason for it as well. It's just some jock who's like, woo, and starts like shooting up the place. It's such a pointless and meaningless death, and I think it really works in this scene. And for Maeve, it's really interesting how she like tries to process it as well, because she kind of she seems shocked when it first happens, but then it's almost like business as usual after a few seconds, and she has to just return to her programmed routine while she has a bunch of Teddy's blood in her face.
Yep, exactly. And I think it's interesting as well, like, because when they show behind the scenes a couple of times when they have, and like this time, obviously, I'm just talking not about Maeve's storyline here, just the actual mechanics of what happens after they kill them. Like the hosing them down, the sewing them up. Yeah. There's a lot that has to happen to get them back into the park.
Yeah.
So therefore, like, whenever this guy comes over and just starts shooting at Teddy and kills him, in my mind, I'm just like, I know it's not a real human life, but I'm just like, look at how much effort has to go in now just because you wanted to shoot that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, look at the cleanup we have to do for you.
Well, yeah, idiot. I mean, not to mention, we'll get there when we get there, but like the very, very stark imagery that Maeve sees, with the piles of bodies, there's a definite, the park itself has to go through so much to actually get these hosts back up and running. But what they have to do as well, I feel like it must have a cost. I wonder if they're going to get into it, actually. I feel like it would have a cost on the humans who are doing the cleanup, as well as the hosts who are being cleaned up. And I wonder if they're ever going to get into that.
because they're so lifelike.
Like, you know, there's literally rooms full of... It's a mass grave, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrific. And, you know, you can say they're not real all you want, but, yeah, at some point, that stops mattering. If they, you know, they weigh about as much as a human, they bleed like a human, and they, you know, they presumably... I wonder if they make them, like, smell. Probably not, right?
Probably not. Actually, this is a really good time to ask you. We got one listener question this week, and I thought I'd just introduce it in now because what we're talking about now. We can spend a couple of minutes just answering it before we go into sort of the big finale of the episode. Basically, the question comes from Adventurous Rover, and they ask, "What are your thoughts on the ethical problem that this episode brings up? Can cheating on your partner with a robot be considered as cheating at all?"
I would say yes. That would be my take on that. I think I would be... It is an interesting question because it's not... You're not, I guess, technically having sex with another person, and there's a grey area between, you know, what is the difference between, I don't know, like a fleshlight and like a full-on functional sex robot. But I definitely think at some point your experience goes beyond masturbatory and into I'm having sex with someone else, and that's the point at which it becomes kind of emotional cheating, if not technical cheating. Like, I think that's that's where I would land on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Konrad sort of do most of the description here because, you know, there are implications to me talking about such things.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just engaged rather than married.
Yes,
we can still pull out.
No. I mean, sort of vocationally, I shall say.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, but I will say that I think it all boils down to the emotional connection you can create. And of course, you could argue like those products that you can buy, which are basically a full-on sized human. You can't like those people do create connections, but I think the emotional connection that you can get with a person in this park is very much different.
Yeah, I think there's still I'm sure as a society we will get there eventually where you can have sex with a lifelike robot, or you know, lifelike animated human doll or whatever. You know, not that far away from it already. And when that happens, we will then start having those ethical questions of like, to what extent does recreating another human to have sex with constitute, you know, cheating on your partner? And you know, I think if it could well be the case that the idea of a monogamous relationship has to you know, shift to accommodate that change in you know, our sexual relationships. But certainly from where I'm sitting right now in the year of our Lord 2021, I would be, if I went there and had sex with one of the hosts, I would come back and be like, I'm sorry. Like it wouldn't be good.
Well, yeah, I think to be honest with you, I think as well it would be almost like it would be the same as cheating. It would be the same as cheating, but in terms of you wouldn't even come back and be like sorry. It would be like
no.
If you were the type to go and do that, you would also be the type to keep it a secret.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, like I suppose if you went like and like had sex with one of the hosts, you'd be like, okay, well this is you would definitely you would know in your heart of hearts that like you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so thanks very much, Adventurous Rover. Great question.
Yeah, I love questions like that.
Yeah. So especially as well, obviously all the subject matter of this series, there's going to be like big like sort of philosophical questions. We're not qualified, but ask us some anyway, because we do want to have a chat.
We'll give it a good old try.
We'll give it a good college try. Okay, so Maeve is starting to remember again. She remembers a sort of a Native American attack, but whenever the sort of chief or the leader of this group comes into the house, it actually is the man in black in her memory.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
So he must have got to her like he got to Dolores and done something to her. I believe that the nightmare she's having of excuse me, the nightmare she's having of the native attack on the homestead is a memory of a past life that she lived in the park, you know, where she wasn't a prostitute, maybe she was just like a homesteader out in the sticks somewhere, and this was one of the narratives that occurred. And I think the fact that she is now remembering it is because at one point the man in black came and did something to her. Either similar thing to Lawrence, where he it certainly seems like it's a similar thing to Lawrence, because the last thing she sees is him getting his knife out, where he subjected her to so much trauma that this memory became like indelibly linked to like the front of her mind, and it wasn't something that she could forget or no longer access. So yeah, I think this is... The Man in Black has done the same thing to Maeve that he did to Dolores that night in the first episode, and that he's possibly done to other hosts in the park as well. And that's why she is having these dreams. It's interesting that she didn't seem to be having them before Dolores spoke to her, which is why I was thinking, oh, is that like these violent delights have violent ends thing, kind of like an activation line to bring these memories back, or is it just convenient timing? I'm not sure on that yet.
Okay. Cool. So she's back.
Yeah.
She's in the real world. She counts. She does her thing. 3, 2, 1, and she wakes up, and there's a couple of doofuses operating on her. Real these guys, doofuses. Comedy
double acts. Just like talking about, how to wash your hands and MRSA.
You know who they remind me of?
Who?
They remind me of Norm and Will Smith from Tested. You know those?
Yes,
two?
yeah, absolutely they do. Yeah. Yeah, that's they definitely have that about them. Couple of doofuses. So okay, first off, this situation's really fucked. Like Maeve holding in her like sliced open abdomen while she tries to run around on bare feet is gross. But also, they seem quite scared that she can hurt
shitless.
them. Well, and she like grabs a knife, which their cool programming is supposed to stop the hosts from ever hurting another a person. But she grabs a knife and she threatens them, and they're scared shitless. So. Something's going on there that is like the cool programming ain't working for this one, guys.
Also, it's interesting because like if it was Tandy Way Newton in a room and grabbed the knife, obviously any human being, man or woman, with a knife at you, it's going to be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm a pretty big guy. I could probably take a little blade going into me and then subdue her. Having said that, when there's a real mystique around these hosts, it's like, how strong are these things? What's going on? Like, it is literally just like a robot in the room with you,
Yeah, she's like the Vision, like in the Avengers movies. Like, she's going to fucking laser you and then punch you through a wall. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're making robots, you might as well make them superheroes at the same time, just in case. And, actually, having said, I am kind of joking when I say that, but we did talk and corporate get mentioned again in this episode, but we talked in the previous episode about how I'm assuming that the corporate interest in these things, it goes beyond just having a park of cool robot hosts and towards like military applications for this technology, because why wouldn't it? If you can make life like robot soldiers that can behave, can perform exactly as you want them to perform and don't have annoying things like emotions or PTSD or things like that, why wouldn't you turn those into soldiers? It just seems like something that we will...
If you were the one who wanted to have an army and wanted to invade other countries and stuff, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because I'm anti-war.
I would like to have... Listen, I'm anti-war as well, but I would like to have a robot army. I would like that.
I would like that to be the new sport. Like every country has their own. It's like Formula One. You have your own robot army, and they go to battle. Yeah, you're just on a big on an American football stadium size thing because you need the space. You just get 100 robots from each side, and they just run it. Basically, what we've invented here. This is a sign that we're no better than the people who go to this park, because what we've essentially invented here is the Roman Colosseum, but for hosts, where we're like, I'm happy for them to be really rudimentary robots though. Like they don't have to be lifelike robots. Like the ones in that what's that Hugh Jackman boxing robot movie? Real Steel. I'm happy for them to be like real steel robots. Yeah, that's fine. As long as they don't look like people, that's fine. Just Robot Wars. All I want is Robot Wars. Bring it back. Come on, bring Craig Charles, bring Robot Wars back on TV. Yeah. Get Matilda out there. And the other one, Sergeant Bash and Sir Kill-A-Lot. I don't remember which one's which. Yes, but so, I mean, this is all sorts of fucked up. Maeve has overridden her sleep mode, I think, here. The guy swears he put her in sleep mode. I believe him. But she's overridden it. Maybe as a result of what the extreme emotional stimuli she is receiving.
but it's a great scene, and as we said before, the image of her like running across the kind of open air bridge into the what is essentially like a morgue with these bodies just piled up, being washed down by people in like PvE. It feels like almost like, you know, footage you watch of, you know, like concentration camps or something like that. And I think it's definitely designed to evoke that kind of imagery of these bodies just being callously discarded and treated, and then recycled back into circulation.
Yeah, well, they also show us Teddy in the tank as well.
Yep.
Obviously to make Maeve sees him, but it's also for our own emotional response to seeing this. They definitely want us to feel empathy for these hosts.
Yeah, you know, like Teddy is in and we talked about this before, but there are traditional Western narratives happening in this show, and in a traditional Western narrative, Teddy is the main character. He's a protagonist. He's the guy who rolls back into town, gets in some gunfights, gets the girl, and everything ends happily ever after. There are like a billion John Wayne movies where this happens, and Teddy is essentially the John Wayne analog. And in this, he has been humiliated. You know, he's had his girl, so to speak, stolen from him, and then he's been killed. He has been like shot in the street by for narrative purposes by Lee, and now he's just been killed by some random dude in a bar for no reason other than he was there. So the fact that they're like constantly humiliating this character, I think, is really interesting and really like tugs at the heartstrings when you see his body here. Yeah,
I agree with you. So Maeve then, it implies that they inject her in the neck and she sort of subdues. Dolores, from the start of the episode, is back now. She's walking out back into the garden, and she digs up a gun.
Yep, I reckon that's a real one too. So I think so. I was questioning before how the guns work. You know, they can shoot hosts and they can't shoot people, and I wonder if I wonder if they're going to get into the physics of it, because it seems really hard to do something like that. But the fact this is a gun that's been buried makes me think the Man in Black left it here, and this is a real gun. So she has a gun now, which I'm sure won't be a plot device in future.
No, there's no such thing as a Chekhov's gun in this show. I'll tell you that.
That's his name. It's Tommy Chekhov.
Tommy Chekhov, and it is his gun.
Yeah.
All right. So Mr. Sizemore finally unveils his new storyline. He's been working on it for ages. You know, a couple of 20 minutes at least, and it's called The Odyssey on Red River. Yeah. He gets a clap, and then all of a sudden, Ford just says, no.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Ford is very much like the Richard Hammond character in this situation, where he's like, you know, he's playing with forces he doesn't really understand, and he's a little bit arrogant, but God, I love him. Like, he's always there to shoot down the scumbags who work for him and who he continues to employ for some reason. And I love the
Richard Hammond.
Richard Hammond from Jurassic Park.
Oh, I'm thinking of Richard Hammond from Top Gear.
No, I
was like, if anything, he's James May.
No, he's none of those wankers. He's Richard Hammond from Jurassic Park, played by what's his face? Oh my God, I'm gonna be strung up. Richard Attenborough, yeah, that's the one.
David Attenborough's brother.
I think it's Richard Hammond. It's John Hammond. Sorry, not Richard Hammond.
It's Richard Attenborough playing.
Richard Attenborough playing John Hammond. Yeah, so we both got it wrong. We can like.
No, I got it right, because you said Richard Hammond and I thought of Richard Hammond.
Listen, you know what I meant. You're the one that's introduced Top Gear into this and ruined the podcast in doing so.
Clarkson's Farm, Amazon, watch it. I'm not watching that.
No, I refuse to. I refuse to watch anything with those assholes in it. I love him. I love John Hammond / Ford. He's a good egg. I'm really interested to see what his narrative that he's proposing instead. It speaks. It's almost a little bit malicious, this, because he's just like says no, and then he's like, and then not to jump forward, but then he's talking with Bernard as they walk around the sort of desert area, and he says, "Oh, I've got an exciting new narrative that the board are going to have." And if he's been planning this new narrative the whole time, it does seem a little spiteful that he even let Lee plan this narrative just to be like, "No, we're not doing that."
Well, I think that both narratives could have happened, because I think that there's just there's always narratives being developed. You know what I mean? That's that department's job. It would have been more spiteful to actually just go, you know what, I'm doing it, you're all fired. You know,
yeah, that's a good point. But I do love the line of where Lee's like, isn't there anything you like about it? And then he just looks down at one of the hosts and says, what size are those boots?
Yeah, and then it cuts to a close-up.
Yeah, it cuts to a close-up. That's great. That's grade A filmmaking right there. That's a hilarious cut. Well done to him.
There was a couple of funny moments in this episode.
Honestly, Teddy getting gunned down I thought was hilarious at the time. It was only in retrospect that I was like, this is actually horrific. But at the time, it was just like, James Marsden, you can't catch a break, can you?
Yeah, and also I like that Ford's got his little speech as well to Lee, and he's saying about, like, they come back for the details. They come back because they fall in love with something. Yeah. And then it cuts and shows William and Dolores meeting for the first time.
Yeah, so that's interesting, that relationship. I wonder where that's going to go. William may be in some danger, I think. Because Dolores is... Well, I mean, she's a robot for a start, so as we said, we don't really know what her physical capabilities are when she's unleashed, but she certainly seems to be operating under her own kind of volition now, rather than necessarily fully conforming to the narratives that she's supposed to, and she has a gun. I could see this ending badly for William's character.
Old Willy boy.
He's getting in. Yeah. He's getting in with the wrong host here.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's pretty much it, actually. So I'm ready to go into the roundup if you are.
Yeah, let's do it.
IMDb rating for episode 2 is 8.5 out of 10.
Is that down from last week?
Yeah, down by 0.4.
I don't think I agree with that. I think last week was great. But I think this is just as good. This is a great episode. There's so much more to the characters in this episode than there were in the first one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually prefer this episode to the last one. And the last one was a great first episode, don't get me wrong, but I do prefer this one. I will say, though, the IMDb ratings on this are going to be slightly more accurate than they were on our last two shows, because this actually does come out weekly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I mean... Well, assuming that they were rated by people who were watching them episode by episode rather than someone who just watched all 10 after the fact. But I mean, yeah, I think the first episode set the table really well. It was a brilliant kind of introduction to the world and introduction to all the characters, but we got so much more just stuff in this episode to sink our teeth into. And yes, it meant that we didn't see that much of, Teddy, we didn't see that much of Teresa. There was some characters who kind of got shunted off a little bit for this
Dolores
time.
even
Yeah, Dolores as well, actually. But the stuff we got with Maeve and with the Man in Black was and Bernard actually was brilliant.
Yep. I agree. Right, okay, run us through, just as a reminder before we go, your theories from coming out of this week.
Okay, here we go. So I've tried to keep these short because, as we know, brevity is the soul of wit. But you know what I'm like with these these theory lengths. So first one, Bernard wants to play God and will be the architect of the park's downfall. So I probably didn't get fully into that when I was talking about his plans, but I think maybe through maybe not deliberately, but certainly through his actions, I think the park's going to have some troubles. Then Bernard's conversations with Dolores are a form of confession for him as he explores her sentience while revealing his own misdeeds. The child Ford meets is his younger self. Ed Harris is Tommy and is either related to or an old friend of Ford.
A host version of his young self is the theory.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
You're not predicting time travel.
Or am I? No. All right. We'll see. I'll leave that one open. I'm not going to put.
It wouldn't be like me to suggest a show with time travel.
Yeah,
would it?
Yeah. I'm not going to put host in there just in case.
It includes host. It's in the subcategory there.
Yeah. I just want to keep it broad, just in case time travel turns up. So yeah, strong enough emotions can override the core programming of host, like with Dolores becoming aware and Maeve waking up from sleep mode, Lawrence's child revealing the maze's secrets. Dolores has a real gun now, and Ford's. We didn't actually speak about this yet, but I think Ford's new narrative is just going to be some supernatural stuff, just because they're talking about churches. So I'm like, oh, maybe they're going to get into some weird supernatural stuff with this.
Cowboys vs aliens or something.
Yeah, or like demons or something.
Oh, okay. That would be really cool if they brought that in. People go thinking it's just the Old West, and then all of a sudden there's demons and stuff.
Yeah, or like vampires. I'm like, all right, I'm very much into this.
yeah. Awesome, that's great. So overall, Konrad, this episode, I think it's pretty good.
Woof. That's what I've got to say about this.
So what about some like mini predictions, like not going? What are you hoping to see next episode?
I'd like to see a bit more. I think we're going to see some of Dolores and William, I assume. I would like to see Teddy not humiliated for one episode, and I want to see the Man in Black following that riddle to wherever it's going. I think those are the main things I'm after for the next episode.
Do you think we're going to see Maeve in the real world anymore, or is it just going to be playing on her mind now?
As in waking up while she's being worked on, or
yeah, that's what I mean.
Probably not in the near future, because I think they're going to be pretty on it with her to make sure she doesn't do that again. But it wouldn't surprise me if we do get these hosts eventually waking up in the real world and becoming more and more self-aware, because I think that whole kind of self-actualization and realization is only going in one direction. Like they're not gonna wake up and then be like, I'll just forget about that. Like, like it is, like it's you can't unring that bell, and Maeve has very much had it rung for her now.
Yeah, I love as well that you talk about Teddy and how you don't want him to be embarrassed, and just like he's such a good guy. Like hopefully just have one episode he can have his respect intact. It's like the opposite to what we were hoping for Bartos in Dark.
Absolutely,
in the first season.
Yeah, Teddy is like the anti-Bartos. Like I want nothing but good things for Teddy. Whereas Bartos, I'd watch him be humiliated 100 times over before I was satisfied.
Yeah, Dark wasn't even in like a park like this where they were hosts that could be killed over and over. But I still would have loved someone just to run in and shoot him 100 times.
Poor old Bartos. Still catching strays even when we're talking about Westworld.
I know, but where's Yasin going to turn up? That's what I want to see. Right, okay, guys. Thanks very much for joining us for episode 2. Looking forward to episode 3 next week, next Monday. So if you want to support the channel, there are links in the description. T-shirt you can get, tip jar there, all that sort of stuff. If you want to listen to us on podcast audio apps, go over to those. All the main ones were on those as well. Apart from that, though, if you want to ask a question for Konrad, comments below or send an email to adpodmail@gmail.com. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. The After Dark podcast has been a Culture Cave production. Please subscribe on audio apps as well as on YouTube at The Culture Cave. Join us next week as Konrad journeys further into the unknown.